That's enough of that. Yeah, this all of these go out on the channel after they are done streaming, so no problems there. I don't edit them or anything afterwards, but you know. Good morning, everybody. It is 10:35, which is a little bit past start time. So yeah, no, let's get started. Let me bring up the thing. So I have one suggestion that was made to me before stream by our very own David King. So this is doorlesschambers.com forum. I'm going to read this first because it's a little bit longer than what I usually read, but it's forum style, so it's not as long as it seems. Ugh, coffee has not hit in yet, but whatever. Okay, this is from the Creepypasta Wiki, and it's also by our very own David King. So I get to make the critique straight to the author's face. Well, not straight to the face, but close enough. Okay, doorlesschambers.com forum archived. Haunted Mansion, The Great Hall, Discussion Room, Disquieting Metamorphosis, Rumors, Moved, HM Conspiracies? I'm guessing that's Haunted Mansion Conspiracies. Kacklemeyer, 17th of March 2016, 1649. That's, oh god, it's 4:49 p.m.? Yeah. I'm sure these kind of things have been floating around the web for a while, but I found a couple of weird stories once about real ghosts and secret tunnels underneath the Disneyland and Walt Disney World mansions. There's one written by a guy who was at Disneyland on a grad night in the 80s, and one by a CM cast member working at Magic Kingdom. I think they got reposted and taken down a few times because now I can't seem to find them anywhere. Does anyone happen to know where they might be, and if so, how valid any of them are? So, for those of you that don't know, that is David referencing his own stories in universe, which is always cool. David doesn't know how to make coffee. It's super simple. Put the beans in with the water and hit go. The trick is finding good coffee. This light roast is, it's okay. It's also not the beans, it's pre-ground, because no one gives light roast beans just as whole beans, and it pisses me off. You don't have to know how to like coffee, you just have to be able to make it. I don't like charring my bread to a crisp, but Paprika does, so I do that for her sometimes when the freaking toaster works. Whatever. Alright, so next. Freddy the Bat. Try here and here. I think they're just creepypasta, so that's definitely where you can, yeah, that's where they're linked. Thanks, Freddy. That was driving me crazy. I guess they finally found their way onto some archives. The first story's been circulating for a few years at least. Madame Lamprey. Oh my god, I remember these stories. Finally, someone found them. They're pretty good, but are they real? Because normally people write stories about the ghosts in the mansion like I do, not about it in real life. So this is very feels did this David, did this come after or before um god, of course I'm forgetting the freaking name now. Uh the other story about a forum post. God damn it. One that Channel Zero made their first season off of. Oh my god. What is wrong with me? Skin Taker. What is wrong with me? It is so early in the morning right now. It's not, but it feels early in the morning, and I cannot remember the fucking title of that story? I've narrated it twice. How do I not know this? Candle Cove. Jesus Christ, thank you. I am sleepy. And my throat has lots of allergy mucus in it. Did this come before or after Candle Cove? Because this is, I don't know if you're aping off of that or if, which is not a bad thing at all, by the way. I'm not saying that's bad. It's one of the nice things about, especially early creepypasta, was people kind of mimicking and transforming styles, and then it got blown way out of proportion, and everything just became really super derivative after Candle Cove. I figured. And let me know if you were or were not aping off of that. But either way, well, my cat just opened my door, and now I have to fucking close that. There we go. Cat opens door, scary. Okay. Young Master Gracie. Freddy's right when he says they're creepypastas. Kudos to whoever wrote them, though. Some of the details are scary accurate, right down to the events being timed around real deaths in the parks. It's pretty morbid. David says, it's a good formula, but this was also inspired by real forums I visited and sometimes cringe I've run across. Cats do have hands under your closet. I know because I read about it on the internet. Logan says there should be a creepypasta about Six Flags. There probably is. Like, if you look deep enough, there probably is. Cacklemeyer, true, it's part of why I asked in the first place. I know some of it can't be verified, but some of it's pretty spot on. Just enough to tickle my brain, make me wonder about it. If anything, I figured it would be fun to discuss the mystery parts, you know? Freddy the Bat. Personally, it lost me when the author mentioned utilidors under Disneyland in the first story. I mean, come on, XD face. Young Master Gracie. Honestly, it's not that weird to make that mistake, though, especially if the writer is saying this was something she thought about as a kid in the 80s. There was probably false information spread around by kids who didn't know all the facts. Also, the woman in the other story pointed that out, too. The point where you realize these stories are fake is when the two named characters in them are Mike and Karen, but again, points for a fun little wink and nod from the author. David, you're a nerd. Six Flags is already scary. Madame Lamprey. Wait, there's also two different versions of the Grad Night story because Mike comes back and takes the car and leaves in the one I read before, but in the one that was linked, it's different. Mike disappeared for good. Why is it different? I don't like things that are different. Young Master Gracie. Such is the nature of the internet, Lamprey. Must have gotten changed or edited somewhere along the way if it was posted anonymously in the first place. Who knows? I like that. This is a meta look at creepypasta itself. And sometimes that can be annoying, but if it's handled well, then it's a nice little A. Madame Lamprey. If I were the writer, I wouldn't write anything anonymously, though. I'd want people to know I wrote it. That way, if anyone made a change, I could bring out the original version and show them wrong. I've thought about this a lot, especially recently, and I was on the creepypasta subreddit, and someone asked, "Hey," and this comes up quite a lot on the subreddit. What happened to creepypasta? When did it start being bad? And that's a very there's a lot of reasons, and everyone who was posting in there had their own version, and all of them are right. But for me, one of the biggest things is that creepypasta started as this very anonymous way of posting, and stuff was just shared. And it was, even though it was only like maybe what 5, 6, 7 years ago, because it was still kind of early in internet forum posting, it had this sense of you kind of got tricked. You didn't exactly know a lot. You couldn't tie these stories to an author. You couldn't tie these stories to an ego. And Now it's very much, it's an industry essentially. It's a formula for a lot of stories, and that's been good and bad, because authors who do want recognition and want to fight for their rights, for their creative rights and IP rights, this is all good things. It's nice, because if a story does get really popular and it was posted anonymously, and then someone goes, I'm going to make a movie out of it, that author, should definitely have the control over that. But the trade-off is, when everything going in is not true. And yeah, sure, the original post you could kind of tell with a lot of them, and you would tell by the end there's something lost. There's something lost with, I heard this. It's internet rumors, and rumors, if you're not the originator of it, are hard to substantiate sometimes. So, I don't know. I feel people have just moved on after a while. It became oversaturated and people just want to make new things. Totally agreed, Under Your Closet. I mean, that's how it is with everything. That is how it is with anything that has any spotlight in the mainstream awareness. And unfortunately for a lot of people, that was the Slenderman stabbings and other things. But everything that goes back underground will morph and change. And, I don't, call it whatever you want. Internet horror fiction, I think, is a great thing, and there is so much more that can be done with it. People just need to try it out and experiment, and hopefully new stuff catches on. All right. Where was I? Here we go. Ravenswood, this is a new speaker. Move this thread to the rumors section. It seems more fitting there with a title like HM Conspiracies. Let's try to not go into no sleep territory here, if you please. Oh, fun. Madam Lamprey, what's no sleep? Cacklemeyer, thanks, Ravenswood. Lamprey, try Googling it. What's no sleep? It's a garbage fire. I guess my point with this thread is that it seems like both stories are alluding to some sort of grand conspiracy, which is really intriguing to me. Whatever is happening under the mansions has to do with when people actually die in the parks. I know that the man with the cane really has been cited by a few cast members working at Florida's mansion, or at least that's the claim. I don't know if anyone has ever described a roaming hatbox ghost at Disneyland, but the popular urban legend for that mansion is the one about the crying boy. I'm surprised that never came up. Anyway, fake or not, I want to discuss theories with y'all. Freddy the Bat. Alright, Cackles, I'll bite. Took another read through both of them. Whenever someone dies in the parks, these rooms and halls kind of appear beneath the mansions and are accessed in weird ways. I guess they're supposed to be like extra dimensional spaces or something. Some of the doors? David. Some of the doors have little out of place touches to them that could also be matched to how each person died, chronologically speaking, of course. Definitely get that part of it. What isn't really delved into is why people dying in the parks causes this to happen, or why the Hatbox Ghost and the man with the cane are there when it when it happens. That all seems random to me. Are they guards, prisoners, soul collectors? No solid answer. Which I guess is kind of the point since they're creepypasta and some of it has to be left unknown. Young Master Gracie. Maybe each mansion has its own guardian host who appears when something like this happens. Could be they're released for a bit when someone dies nearby, perhaps to catch the lost soul and stick them in the prop rooms. Why that would happen, I have no clue. Typos are an inevitability, or forum posts. You mean of forum posts? David. I'm just messing with you. Cacklemeyer. How did you line this up, Freddy? Any chance we can see a list of Disney park deaths? Yikes, that's a morbid request. Oh, I pulled the lamest joke in internet history, which is being a grammar Nazi. Which, I'm sorry, that is a big part of my job, is correcting people's writing and just formatting stuff. So I can't help it. It's what I do every day. Freddy the Bat. Oh my God, there's a list. Ask and ye shall receive. I put together a quick list here of all deaths associated with Disneyland up to 1983. Now, is this all true? Are some of these, like, if this were me, I would make most of them true and then some of them false. But I'm willing to bet, because this is David, that all of these are true. Ask blah blah blah. So 1964, teenage boy stands up on Matterhorn, falls out, dies 3 days later. Falls out. Oh, falls out of the ride. Okay, I get it. These are all real. Damn. All right. Because a lot of these I probably haven't heard about. 1966, teenage boy crushed under monorail after trying to sneak in on the track. 67, teenage boy crushed to death under people mover car while jumping between cars. Man, bunch of idiot teenage boys. 1973, teenage boy drowns in rivers of America. Seeing a pattern here. 1974, female cast member crushed between walls in America Sings. That one I do know about. 1979, woman falls into coma after riding Space Mountain, dies a week later. Space Mountain will do that to you. It's pretty cool. 1980, teenage boy crushed to death under people mover car while jumping between cars. Again. 1981, teenage boy fatally stabbed in Tomorrowland during fight. Damn. 1983, teenage boy drowned in rivers of America. The grad night death. I don't think it is physically possible for David to provide false information concerning Disney. That's probably true. And here's Walt Disney World until 2004. 1977, child drowns in Cinderella's castle moat. 1980, young girl becomes ill riding Space Mountain, dies later. 82, toddler falls from tram in parking lot. Ouch. 82, toddler hit by falling menu board. That's just unfortunate. 84, family of 3 killed when small plane crashes in Epcot parking lot. That's just bizarre. 86, man and woman drowned after car crashed in retention pond, Epcot parking lot. 92, man commits suicide with a shotgun in Epcot. World of Tomorrow. 1995, girl with heart condition loses consciousness in Body Wars, dies later. 99, male custodian killed in fall from Skyway gondola. 2000, man killed when hit by Splash Mountain log trying to exit. In 2004, a male cast member run over by parade float to the man with the cane death. Brutal and spooky. One could argue that this is exploitative. Sure. This gets into a recent discussion I was having about like No Sleep Stories, writing about the coronavirus as it's happening. And to No Sleep's credit, they did actually pretty much put a sort of ban on it. You can still write stories with quarantine happening in the background, but the coronavirus cannot be the focus of the story. And a lot of people took issue with that. A lot of people were in favor with it. And one person was saying, well, we talk about murder and war and all this other stuff. And someone, I think it was a mod, replied correctly, in my opinion, yeah, but we don't talk about, like, the exact person in the exact war as it's happening to them right now. People can talk about lots of horrible things, but names are changed, locations are different, time periods are different, and that is a kind of a way to take the concept of these horrific things and write stories about them. It's very different than writing about something that's happening right now to a lot of people. Both are exploitative. Both are exploiting something to the end being making a story. This is exploitative, but it's not tasteless. It is, hey, these things happened. And what's the most recent one? 2004? Like, that's a while ago. And it's not calling out the person who died by name or anything. So, yeah, it's exploitative, but it's not tasteless. And I think that's the real difference. I've seen other people use similar premises for their own stories. One story I read used a real-life death on Big Thunder as the basis for a ghost story. Yeah, no, you can do that. And that's just in close proximity to the parks. Don't even get me started on the deaths that have happened in other parts of the resort or the water parks. You all know about River Country. Main thing is that there's way more deaths at Disneyland and Walt Disney World listed here than there are doors under either mansion. So that feels like a definite debunk there. Should have been way more doors. More doors. Cacklemeyer. I'm almost sorry I asked. Haha, that's messed up. Young Master Gracie. I'm not so sure. Do you know about Disney's policy of never declaring people dead in the parks? It's a weird thing they do whenever they can feasibly do it. Even if someone is killed instantly, Disney always tries to say that the victim did not really expire until they were beyond the park. You can imagine a lot of people passed in transit to a hospital, at least on paper. Oh, Disney. Freddy the Bat. Well, that complicates things. I didn't know about that. There's some obvious cases where someone didn't die until later, but for others, it's not even hard. It's even harder to tell. Cacklemeyer. That's bonkers. Disney cares about their image that far. Can't spoil anything for the guests, right? So keeping that in mind, the Grad Night prop room numbers still make sense. Walt Disney World is still a stretch, but it's a lot more feasible. Maybe we're missing a pattern. What circumstances cause the doors to appear, and what factors add another room? And what are they storing down there? Madame Lamprey. Okay, I see what's happening now. This makes me inspired to keep writing my Phantom Manor story, even though it's not about the ride. It's more about how Melanie and Constance meet each other and fight over grooms. Hey, speaking of if you guys are talking about this, could you please maybe go and read what I have so far in the library board? It's called Trials of Dead Brides 2. Oh, yes, they do. Ha! The only pattern I see in these stories is how much they get wrong. How can you take any of this remotely seriously despite the glaring flaws is beyond me, especially the second one. Any cast member worth their salt would know what is accurate. I call foul. Cacklemile. Care to elaborate, oh hey? Oh yes? I'm honestly interested in what you have to say. Madame Lamprey. Wow, that's really kind of rude. Oh, yes they do. How would you feel if someone said your stories were bad and had flaws, huh? I bet that would make you really sad. You don't have to be so damn rude. Oh, yes, they do, at Madame Lamprey. You understand when you're older what criticism is, dear. Cacklemeyer. Speaking as an actual cast member who has worked at the Haunted Mansion, there's a number of well-done guesses on the part of the writer, but it stops short of being believable for these reasons. There's only one security camera in the load area. All other methods of detecting whether someone gets on or off the ride where they aren't supposed to are through intrusion mats and infrared beams. The ride won't even run unless they're turned on, so when the narrator says she got out and nothing halted, she should have known that what was happening was impossible. Walking through the attraction with the lights on is nothing special. We do it all the time for regular maintenance. There is a little workshop that is accessed through the endless hallway, and I think the writer mentioned that door, but there is no utilidor access from the show building in that corridor, which the cast member should have known. Furthermore, you cannot go past the scrim at the end of the hall unless you break it. Walt Disney Industries never stores props underground. Also, in the first one, I'm pretty sure you can't go under the up ramp in the Disneyland Mansion. There'd be no space down there, what with the equipment used to keep it running. That place the Doom buggies go through to loop back to load isn't that long and looks nothing like that. So, David, is this you riffing on your own stories? Because I kind of like it. Because it's I don't know. It's fun. It's just fun to be like, yeah, I wrote this story and I put in intentional flaws. Or maybe you thought about them later. I think Petscop, if you know about that, uses references to a real child's murder, but it's done in a somber and respectful way. Yeah, I haven't followed Petscop in a long time, but I do believe it was about an actual child murder. But like, if you didn't know that and you just watch the Petscop videos, you would not know. You have to do a really deep dive, and I think it's just a theory. I don't know. But that one doesn't like that's not tasteless as well. Freddy the Bat. Oh yes, you must be a lot of fun at parties. Madame Lamprey, this message has been removed. This is If this wasn't on the Creepypasta wiki, I would believe that these are forum posts. Ravenswood, letting you off with a warning, Madame Lamprey. I expect everyone to keep discussion civil and not to resort to insults. As much as you might disagree with, oh yes, personal attacks will not be tolerated. Carry on. Young Master Gracie. Those are good points, oh yes, but I think you're missing the point on a couple of them. Obviously, something supernatural and reality bending is happening in these stories, which would mess with normal operating procedures and other elements. The prop rooms and the overlong loop for the buggies are part of that. The gist we're getting is that they only appear when someone dies in the parks, and whatever is actually haunting the mansions is about. Everything else is speculation. Kacklemeyer. There could have been more security cameras in the 70s too. Feels like nitpicking to me. I noticed something on another read-through, by the way. In the second story, the author said specifically 8 people had died on Walt Disney World Resort property. Maybe she's referring to 8 cases where people were actually declared dead or confirmed dead before they crossed the property line. It's a small thing, but maybe the narrator knows an exact number we don't. Or could be as in the dark as we are. Who knows? Doff's detective's cap. Young Master Gracie. It's possible. It could be that these places appear every time there's even a near-death experience, but only some doors appear. I think that the man with the cane and the Hatbox Ghost manifest whenever this happens. And if a person actually dies within the parks, that's when they get another prop door. It deepens. Freddy the Bat. Cannot tell if we're understanding a hidden theme or drawing attention to the author's lack of research, XD. Madame Lamprey. Hey, what about Tokyo and Paris? Both have a mansion and there's also Mystic Manor, even though that one isn't really a haunted mansion. Has anyone ever died in those parks? I want to know because my dad's taking me to Disney Paris soon to see my uncle who works there, and maybe I can investigate too. Also, can someone please read my story and leave a review? Oh, man. Yep. Yeah, there's people like that in the forums. Freddy the Bat. That's actually a good question, Lamprey. Did a little more morbid research. I think that's becoming my specialty. And surprisingly, I couldn't find any reports of any fatal accidents at Tokyo Disneyland or Disney Sea. Considering how long they've been around, I'm impressed. Worst I found were a couple of urban legends about child abductions and the usual stories of real ghosts in the haunted mansion there. Objects seen on the ride that weren't there before, a ghostly woman standing at the end of the hallway, etc. Nothing spectacular. Paris, on the other hand, is not so lucky. There's been 3 incidents that resulted in a death at the resort. That's still pretty small compared to Disneyland and Walt Disney World. Kacklemeyer. Yikes, thanks again, Freddy. Based on that, it's likely that nothing would appear under Tokyo's mansion. Paris, though, what do you think that would be like? By the way, guys, if you have suggestions for other stuff for me to read, now is the time to go find them so I can not spend so much time looking after I'm done with this story. And if I'm not relying, exclusively on everyone to do my work for me. Just saying, if you do have something, please. For all we know, in these stories, there's nothing beyond Disneyland and Walt Disney World's mansions. If you think about it, the real skeletons on Pirates of the Caribbean, the plane that went down in Florida before the park opened, those things give the idea that something macabre or tragic had already happened before the mansions were built. That doesn't apply to Tokyo and Paris. Kacklemeyer. Okay, but Walt once said that he wanted to make a place for wayward ghosts from all over the world when they built the Haunted Mansion. That was part of the story gimmick for the ride, but what if in these stories the people who die in the parks get stuck there, but need to be kept away from places that would upset guests? Simple solution. Build a haunted house attraction and then keep the haunts in there. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. That would be an interesting angle. Is that something Walt actually said? It probably is. Freddy the Bat. Gotta love that diabolical Disney logic. Not a bad theory at all. You sure you didn't write these yourself, Cackles? XD. Madame Lamprey. Oh my god, that makes so much sense. I always knew the mansions were really haunted ever since I first wrote it when I was 4 and I wanted to meet all the ghosts. Hey, do you think that happened in Paris too? I'd be really scared if I saw the Phantom walking around like the Hatbox Ghost and the man with the cane. But if it was Melanie, I'd feel a lot better because she's so pretty and has nice green eyes like my dad. My uncle's friend... It's actually just her dad in a ghost outfit. My uncle's friend, who also works there, said he'd take me backstage when I visit so I can see how everything works. So maybe I can get some answers. Young Master Gracie. Lamprey, you know we're just talking about creepypasta, right? Kacklemeyer. That is a pretty neat idea, but without a third story in this saga, we'll never really know. I kind of like the ambiguity, though, since it leads to this discussion. Madame Lamprey. If it's just a story, then why are you guys spending so much time talking about it instead of reading my story? uh, young people on the internet. I asked you nicely a couple times. No one's left any comments on it or any of the other ones I posted, and I know the other aren't very good, but I'm really proud of my bride story. Why can't you guys read and talk about theories on mine? Anyway, they're in the library. Go read them, please. Okay, so I can definitely see how Lamprey has a lot of typos. Intentional typos. Ravenswood. Another strike, Madame Lamprey. You're straying from the topic. Madame Lamprey. Well, how else am I going to get people to read my stories, Ravenswood? Tell me that, huh? Why are you all ignoring me? Freddy the Bat. If you're monitoring this, I'd like to know what your thoughts are, Ravenswood. Now that your namesake attraction has been brought up, I figured you'd have more to say. Oh no. 1, 2, 3, 4 spammed links. Oh no. From Madame Lamprey. Spamming links will also not be tolerated. I hate to ban, but ban I have. Freddy. I also gave them a read. I feel like you all might be overthinking them, but I won't rain on your parade. They're entertaining, and so is this topic. Just keep it in the realm of discussing fiction, and you're good. Freddy the Bad. It's okay, boss. Lamprey was obnoxious, but she just really appreciates Kingdom Hearts. God damn it. I won't hold that against her. Plus, we made it clear from the onset that we're just talking about pastas. Tortellini, macaroni, rigatoni. Kacklemeyer. Thanks again, Ravenswood. Poor kid has no social skills. Honestly, I'm not sure how much more there is left to talk about. Unless someone writes a story about hidden tunnels under Phantom Manor, I think we're out of material for solving the mystery. We'll never know what happened to Mike and Karen, who our respective narrators were, and why the Hatbox Ghost and the Man with the Cane do what they do. My theory is still that they appear when there's a death and then either guide or ferry the soul to the hidden places beneath the mansions, all to preserve the guest experience. In a way that makes the whole thing darker, imagining all these poor souls are trapped down there in the limbo space. Maybe they even get used for props, hence the labels on the doors. Who knows? Either way, it does lend itself to a proper conspiracy discussion, even if it's not real. That is very heartwarming. Just talking about fiction. Oh, yes, they do. Playing catch up a bit now that Lamprey's gone, it's about time. She was spamming other boards too. You want to talk about laughable stories? Well. But keeping on topic, thank you, Ravenswood, I don't think it's nitpicking at all to point out where things aren't realistic in a story. I just wanted to make the case that whoever wrote at least the second story is likely not a real cast member, or at least not a very good one if there are so many little errors. I would simply advise the author to do more research and revise it, but, well, it's already up out on the internet. Too late for that. Especially now that I've seen a few readings of it on YouTube, and I don't really like those. Ghost Lamp. Oh no. She's back. Hey, you assholes, thought you could keep me out, but guess what? It's me. I made another account, and now I know Ravenswood is going to be a douche again and try to ban me, but it doesn't matter anymore. I made this just so I can come back and say that you all never gave me a chance, so I'm going to show you all wrong. Also, you'll never see me again anyway after this, but that's fine because everything is going to be awesome from now on. Everything else is scared. Everyone else is scared of going into the prop rooms, but not me. I'm going to learn the truth about, and when I do, I won't tell any of you think these stories are fake, but I know better. Now I'm not going to die or anything. I just have a plan to get the ghost to come out, just like in the stories you all seem to love so much. Anyway, you all suck, and I don't care if I meet the Phantom or Melanie when I go because you'll all be sad that you won't know the real story. So there. Oh. Ravenswood, I'm shutting this thread down. Body found in hand. Ooh, oh, nice. Nice. I'll read this later. Very, very good, David.
straddles the line between, and straddles a very meta line of fact and fiction surrounding deaths at Disneyland resorts, and that's really cool. I liked it. I liked it a lot. It's this works on there's a lot of levels that I like about this. I like how it's a meta narrative about creepypasta. I like how it is a very good portrayal of what forum discussions go on the internet, and it's like could not be more accurate. Um oh, yeah. And even if you're like not a big Disney fan, and I am. I like Disney. Disney properties that is. Like even if you're not super into that, you're familiar enough with a lot of it. Like I don't know, I haven't read all the other Disney pastas, so I'm not immediately familiar with the Hatbox Ghost and the Man with the Cane. But it doesn't matter because all it matters for this story is that they are spirits or apparitions or what have you appearing when people die. That's all you need to know. So it's a Disney pasta that is not so loaded with obscure lore and deep lore that you have to like basically do homework just to decipher it all, which is really good writing. So yeah, man, good job. Rabid Radioactive Raccoon says meta narratives tend to either be utter drivel or awesomely thought provoking. This landed in the latter category. Yeah, I would agree. Okay, I'm gonna go get more coffee because my coffee mug is empty, and I'll be right back. Keep putting on my headphones. I don't need to do that. Which is good because they're wearing out and they start to hurt my head. Was that a real article? Yes, yes, it was. And Raccoons also echoes yes. I think S. Andrew Swan's version of SCP-001. I am not reading SCPs. Sorry for people who like them. I do not enjoy reading them. Just my personal preference and opinion. All right. Ugh. Going to look for another story. Gonna start by sorry. Ooh, this looks. Hmm. Hmm. Oh, okay. There is no such thing as Area 51 by Blue Key Card. I didn't even see that. Where the? Oh, there it is. Sorry. The chat had gone past that. Cool. Let me go find that. So this is a 3-year-old no sleep story. 9,000 upvotes, archived. Okay, this could be good. Not too long either. Perfect. Perfect. All right. There is no such thing as Area 51 by Blue Key Card on No Sleep. For several years, I've been an avid reader of No Sleep, but because of my profession, I was never permitted to submit content to it or to anywhere. Occasionally, an Area 51 story pops up. I used to work at Area 51, or I snuck into Area 51, etc. Excuse me. These stories always made me want so badly to finally jump in here, but I always held my tongue until now. So if your profession has anything to do with working at Area 51, I don't think anything you worked on has been declassified and you could submit it. But this is 3 years ago. So this was before the absolute deluge of I work at blank and shit's weird, yo. So I'm going to give it a pass because this was just before all that got way out of control. Using a series of proxies and all kinds of networking jibber jabber, I think I'm in the clear making this post. I won't bore you with the details. I mean, just professionally speaking, it doesn't fucking matter. Like, you don't. If you work for government organizations, they're fucking monitoring everything you're doing. Like, sorry, it's just a thing. But you know, this is me nitpicking. This is definitely me nitpicking. It's not a bad way to set up your story. Hey, I'm changing all the names and places. It's a very common thing to do. One that I'd rather you just say the thing and not. I don't know. It's a tough line to walk because what if you want to write Area 51? Well, then you have to give a bunch of backstory. It's impossible to get around. So I feel that. I came here to No Sleep after years of lurking to correct a lot of the misapprehensions and legends about the most infamous military installation in the world. I'm doing this now because even if I get caught, I have a really useful insurance policy. I'm seriously ill and not likely to recover, and I've got no family that I'm in contact with that could get retaliated against. There's nothing anybody can do. I think. Oh, zoom in. Yes. Thank you for reminding me, Kayla. The narrator of this story was black bagged before they even typed the post. This whole thing is government information. Why does the No Sleep logo look like the Twilight Zone copycats? No. They did that because they're trying to change their image or something, and I find that very disrespectful to the Twilight Zone because the Twilight Zone is good and No Sleep for the most part isn't. The whole thing is government misinformation. Oh, okay. There is no such thing as Area 51. Sorry. And the facts that it's the golden egg of conspiracy theories worldwide is exactly what the US government wants. I'm writing this in a bit of a rush and I don't have any of my thoughts organized, so I'm just going to break it down as follows. Groom Lake, Paradise Ranch, Edwards AF Extension, Restricted Training Facility, UX-104. These are a few names for the place you know as Area 51. I don't know much about its history, but essentially it was intended by the U.S. Air Force to be a secret weapons testing facility during the Cold War. It had a few on-site extensions. One of them was for developing experimental rocket and jet engines. One was for training contingents of troops for nuclear warfare and post-apocalyptic survival, etc. But much like the third Star Wars movie, the site and its purpose got out around the time of the Roswell incident, and a media frenzy popularized the base. The government tried at first to quell speculation about it, but then adopted another strategy: feed into the hype. and simply moved the base a few dozen miles away. I think I do remember that. They moved a bunch of shit out of Area 51, so like today there's nothing there. Or is that all part of the mystery? Today, Groom Lake, Area 51, is a small but functional military airport and base. It's got a bunch of bunkers, mostly housing low security servers, and some munitions tests are performed there. Staff are regularly moved in and out, mostly folks who are low on the totem pole and trying to climb up the ladder to the real facility. There are some very outdated nuclear fallout shelters that are still maintained and used for storage. The facility consumes an enormous amount of power, and everything possible is done to make it look like a well guarded military base that is engaged in some huge secret operations. The employees really do fly there every day from Las Vegas on conspicuously inconspicuous jets, marked as Janet, sometimes referred to as just another non existent terminal. And they want you to notice and wonder. They want you to wonder where those jets are going, and they never want you to spend 1 second thinking about where they came from. Conspicuously Inconspicuous Jets is the name of my toy model line of jets that are invisible, and those suckers still buy it. I knew someone that believed it was all moved to Northern California. Do I know this person, Paprika? The real Area 51. This is the most exciting part because, as far as I can tell in my limited and clandestine researching, nobody has ever divulged the real secret before. It's pretty highly guarded, and they straight up murder people who are stupid enough to share it. Murder isn't even the right word. They erase people from existence, sometimes entire families. That's why the government freaks out when they find that one of their employees is terminal and has nothing left to lose. It's why, if you're an employee there, you only see their doctors, so that they know about your health before you even know about it. They want you to die real quick of a sudden heart attack so that you never have a moment to think about how you might do a public service and air their dirty laundry. And sometimes they induce those heart attacks when they determine you to be an HMT, or health motivated threat. I like this all so far. The writing is good, it's solid, it flows well, it's intriguing, and it's not happened upon a lot of tropes and stupid front loading or spoiling plots. And even if this like has some weird supernatural thing at the end, I think it may not piss me off. But I didn't need to see a doctor to know that I'm suffering from the same malignant tumor that killed my father, glioblastoma multiforme. Glioblastoma? I'm going to butcher that. My binomial nomenclature is not good. Every 3 months we get a health evaluation, and every 6 months before we get a CAT scan. I simply didn't report the very damning symptoms this past eval, and I'll probably be gone before they scan me next. I didn't report the very damning symptoms. But wouldn't they have noticed? Like, this when I think about this deep of a government conspiracy, I think that they're monitoring their employees very closely. Like, they would know before you knew. And it even says that. So that they would know your health before even you even know about it. So, I don't know. I really wanted to do this instead, maybe just to be the first, I guess. The only other thing I've ever done with my life is fix computers. I like that. Like, it's not even... You could call it a patriotic duty, you could call it being a hero, but even he just says, maybe I just wanted to be the first. I got nothing left to lose. It's not this squeaky clean motivation, because it doesn't need to be. The real secret military base is McCarran International Airport in Las Vegas. The history of the airport was always bound up in military involvements. Before and during World War II, the Army Corps of Engineers and the Air Force were building, storing, training, and doing all sorts of things there. Basically, the government and its corporate benefactors in the military-industrial complex, of course, acquired full ownership of the airport around the time Area 51 Groom Lake exploded in the public eye. It was a rush job and a simple solution. Looking at the chat. For all intents and purposes, McCarran is an airport and moves civilians in and out and all over the world just like any other airport on Earth. but its subterranean operations are really something else entirely. First of all, you have to have an appreciation of Kingdom Hearts to understand. No, you have to understand the structure of this military base. Because it serves ostensibly as a business of public transportation, every single aspect of the base has dual functions. This is called masking, and is deployed with remarkable effectiveness at McCarran. No, do not start scanning. God, freaking Windows support. Where was I? To name a few examples, the constant takeoffs and landings of airplanes provide sound camouflage for cutting-edge engine tests. The public completely ignores these sounds and dismiss them as the standard cacophony of airports. Some of the jets themselves are even equipped with technology under test, while others are used to transport hundreds of government employees dressed as vacationing civilians. At any given time in McCarran, up to 6 of the gates, corrected by a reader I initially said terminals, are filled with employees of the highest echelons of the U.S. military and government. They sit around on their iPhones, dressed as college kids in their pajamas or weary businessmen, and they're paid to look the part. I could see that. If we're like, if this is coming, this is appealing to the conspiracy theorists and everybody. Everyone at the airport's a plant. I like that though. Paprika says underground mole people base. Yes. Why is nobody talking about the mole people? I'm sick of everyone ignoring this. I should write something about mole people. That would be fun. The entire base is heavily guarded by plainclothes soldiers. Military police, tactical specialists, counterterrorism forces, and all kinds of soldiers scurry about the airport dressed like cops, airport security, and desk attendants. Their weapons are usually concealed sidearms. The real firepower is packed by the boys waiting around underground. Assault rifles and armor-piercing weaponry is stored around the airport's public spaces in various places. It's not hard to do, because nobody's looking for it. And of course, they hire a good number of civilians to work the TSA and other positions. This is called mixing, and it's necessary. What kind of airport would never post any job listings? Mixing and masking would never post any job listings. Now, is that true? Airport job listing. Ha! Crap. Oh, damn it. Now, if I had looked at this on any other day, maybe. Just because of what's going on right now, I could see why this would be 0. Yeah. But that's kind of awesome that it comes up nothing. McCarran is a military base for the NCR. Oh, you're right. That's why I keep recognizing the name, because I've never actually flown through McCarran. But it totally is in New Vegas, which is the best Fallout. And oh man, I just want New Vegas 2. Why didn't we get New Vegas 2? Anyway, no, that's it's definitely because of what's going on right now. There's no job postings, I bet you. But oh man, that was cool because it made me go look it up. La 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 la. Have you ever watched the mechanics ducking in and out of the planes outside, or seen your luggage loaded onto the plane as you board? Well, all that cargo transport activity acts as a cover for the mass movement of special forces, lab equipment, military hardware, exotic building materials, etc. Exotic building materials. I'm just thinking of like plasteel plating, transparent aluminum. Didn't they start transparent aluminum? Something they're actually trying to make now. Paprika, fact check me on that. It's not hard to do. They drive one of those rigs with all the luggage spilling out of it, and then you instinctively don't question what's on the other 4 rigs behind it. We even have mix-ups and spills occasionally, and nobody bats an eye. You're always exposed to some level of radiation while flying, and McCarran, by the way, is why the standard of safe exposure is set where it's at. But excess radiation from weapons testing is vented into the earth and out of the nearby desert. I don't know too much about radiation. I know a little bit because I used to work in telecom. It depends on the type of radiation, and like radiation can be like borne on the wind to places, so that one seems a bit flimsy. I don't know. Whatever. That's a nitpick by me again. Having an airport to explain the radiation is an effective means of ridding the base of nosy folks with Geiger counters. But the true genius of this top secret military installation is at the largest scale. The base was built under an airport because of the enormity of its power consumption, but it consumes a lot more power than a regular airport. So it was built in the city that consumes a tremendous amount of power, Las Vegas. So the base is hidden from view even on the electric power grid. Area 51, not so much. And that's on purpose. Okay. So this is a lot of setup. But it doesn't feel like it might as well be a bullet point list, but it's not. And I really do appreciate that because it's taking very mundane imagery that most of us are used to and then just saying yes but no. And that is clever and it is well written. I don't have, I really don't have a lot to nitpick about this, or I don't have a lot to criticize beyond just my minor nitpicks, and that's a good thing. Inside the base. So if Area 51 is the distraction, what do we call the real one? It has many names, but it's usually referred to as the Nexus. That's an acronym, but not many people know what it means. Not even me. Everything about the Nexus. Can we do an acronym for Nexus? Nuclear energy experimental underground station. Yeah. That means everything is everything about the Nexus, from its operations to its structure, is compartmentalized. That means everything is need to know, and virtually nobody knows anything more than their own specific task. You could work in an office in the Nexus doing something like accounting and never have one single clue about what the woman next to you does, or the guy down the hall. They say not even the president knows exactly what's going on there, just a few generals and some dudes in the CIA. The business culture here is insane. It's like North Korea. Everyone is smiling, everyone is fine, and everyone is happy to say just a few phrases about what it is they do when we're allowed to socialize, which is not much. Every line is bugged, every room has a camera in it, and nobody knows who's watching, listening, or when. So that makes you think, nobody here is telling me the truth about anything, not even the guy I share an office with. I wonder if any of us know why we are here. People you've worked with for a long time will suddenly get reassigned or have a medical emergency, and you'll never see them again. And nobody will remember that person no matter how many people you ask. I actually got hired to do some programming for the Navy when I was in my early 20s out of college, and then got sent to Groom Lake to do server tests. They liked my IT/networking skills, so after a series of strange psychological tests and mountains of non-disclosure agreements and background searches, I got offered a job at a facility near Las Vegas proper. Here are a few stipulations of that job, by the way. It's a $1.5 million after-tax lump sum plus a $220,000 year stipend, $220,000 per year stipend, housing, car, medical paid for, but psychological breakdowns, anxiety attacks, grave health conditions, and family issues void the contract. Hard to say no to that amount of money. Like, if you were fine just clocking in 9 to 5, yeah, that could be pretty nice. Government contracts, yo. I also sign approximately 2 new non-disclosure agreements per week, most of which read under penalty of death somewhere. And that's very much the fiction. Not that I, have access to this level of clandestine government NDAs, but yeah, I don't know. Term of service is 5 years, then 4 in debriefing, wherein we get to live in Vegas but report to another facility 4 days a week. We are discharged and observed for the rest of their lives. Our passports are permanently void. We cannot ever leave the continental U.S. Well, I'm out. I want to be able to vacation. I heard a statistic that 20% of former employees commit suicide. I don't know if it's true, but if it is, I bet it's actually Suicide. The base is underground. It's a network of large structures called hives, which form what is called the colony or the nexus. We make lots of Resident Evil jokes. I was gonna say, like Zerg or Tyranids or Gene Stealer cults. By the way, except unlike in that movie, the government doesn't try to make its employees feel comfortable with fake forests and windows overlooking digital cityscapes. It's a dark, dreary, Soviet-style labyrinth of halls and bunkers, replete with all sorts of submarine-like features, water and airtight hatches, trapdoors, reinforced blast doors, etc. And someone's job is to close the blast doors. The only exception are the office buildings inside where chair moisteners like me work. Chair moisteners. There's a lot of the stylized writing is nice. I like it. They look just like the office you work in, except the men with guns standing guard 24/7 everywhere, looking over your shoulder. Oh, and the beautiful, almost surreal glow of the cutting-edge laboratories that pock the lower levels of each building. I've never been in them, but I've passed by a few times. Get to live in Vegas? Yeah. Unless you're Zach Baggins, I don't know anyone who's super excited to live in Vegas. Rabid Radioactive Raccoon says, refers to Resident Evil as a movie. Immediate 0 out of 10. I mean, it is a movie, just one you need to be on acid to enjoy. Paprika says, I'd imagine this guy would know a lot more acronyms and definitions and have to explain them. Sure. But would it just bog down the story after you get past a certain point of there's this and like unless they are immediately relevant to what's explaining this mystery, it could just kind of bog you down with lingo. They made Resident Evil movies? Oh god. Dude, there's like 5 of them now and they're bad. They're all bad. Zach Baggins is Las Vegas as a person. Oh, it's so true, though. Oh my god. There are 4 hives to my knowledge, although I wouldn't be surprised if there were more. I work in Hive 1. I run some of the servers with a few other guys on one particular floor. There are 16 floors in our hive. But we monitor and maintain all of the servers in Hive 1, so we move around a bit. I've gotten to skim some of the data that passes through, and from what I can tell, we're the most boring hive. I've compiled the following list based on the things I've intercepted on our network and also from hearsay from other coworkers. The Nexus has multiple networks and they're all decentralized, but there are some ways in which they communicate, and it is via those lines of communication that I am privy to some sensitive information. Here's what I know. Hive 1. Finance, accounting, operations / organization divisions, troop training / housing, and some small-scale weapons testing. Hive 2. Chemical engineering, some nanotech research, and advanced psychological fitness, whatever that means, for elite military forces. Probably Black Ops stuff and how to survive 30 years in solitary confinement at a Siberian prison. I also have reason to believe that this is the hive where the bigwigs meet and live. Hive 3. Upper levels are bioweapon and disease research / testing. If the government has zombies, they've got to be here. I've wanted to make so fucking many zombie jokes over the years, but I never know which of my coworkers is a rat. Lower levels are advanced space travel and space warfare technologies. Cool. Particle engines and gravitational beams and the like, guessing no real evidence. Science fiction stuff. I once saw an email with all sorts of coded language marked A-B, which is widely believed to refer to astrobiology. That's alien life. Maybe it's just some single-celled organisms or fossilized plants from some meteor. Or maybe it's something much more advanced. Whatever it is, there must be some research whatever it is, there must be some reason it's not on the upper levels with all of the biologists. Hive 4. Total informational blackout. There are encryptions and firewalls and network security features protecting this hive that I've never seen before, not even on top secret Navy projects I've worked in the past. I'm being very non-specific in the language I use to describe our server clusters and networks because I don't want to tell them exactly who I am. They'll eventually find out anyway. But there's a widely whispered rumor about Hive 4. Allegedly, the most terrifying thing in the world is in that structure on floor 15. This is giving me major Slime Beast vibes.
And I'm not saying that one author copied the other or whatever. I think these are just similar writing styles. But this is very. It is at both times conversational and matter of fact, but somehow it's super accessible, but very engaging. It's not so dry that you get bored. It has enough witty banter and little hidden phrases in it that are just, I don't know, they ease you into the world and the story. And it's something that's not easy to do. I don't think I've ever really done it myself. Maybe I just haven't tried hard enough, but not everyone can pull that off. And I think a lot of people, they try to pull this off on No Sleep. And because everything has to be a blog, essentially, like a blog post. And so few authors manage to do this. It's and it's not easy. It's not that easy to do. I just wish more kind of got to this level, because this is good. I like this. Even it like, it doesn't really have much of a plot line until now, because it's, hey, we're getting just deeper and deeper and deeper into the hives, and now that floor 15 hive 4 has been mentioned, like, this is kind of the apex of the story, or the crux we're getting to. But the journey to get here was not boring. So hey. I love to hear, for instance, him making a T-zombie joke at work and nobody getting it. Paprika thinks there would be more lingo than this. Fair enough. Fair enough. There are a few unusual things about Hive 4. First of all, none of the top brass has clearance to get in there. They access it remotely via video feed in their conference rooms, and materials are often transported from 4 to 2 for physical review. And what was 2 again? Chemical engineering, nanotech research. Okay. I don't know why our bigwigs won't go into 4, but maybe it's because it's too dangerous. There was one guy who worked in 4 a few years ago when I first started, and he caused the first Nexus-wide lockdown I've ever seen. He was being escorted through one thumpers, what we call the squads of black-booted soldiers that grant access to different hives, and he started shrieking about IDAs. IDAs. Oh, I should know that. IDAs. I don't know. IDA. In-depth analysis. International event. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I didn't hear his screams, but I heard the gunshot while I was eating lunch. They put a bullet in the back of his head before he could finish his sentence. IDAs, by the way, God, of course they just say it then. Interdimensional anomalies. I have no further information on what those are. Another thing I've read minimally about are the twins. Oh my god, the 4 titties are in the story. I don't know who or what these are, but they're the above top secret gem of Hive 4. It is treasonous to even correspond about them on our secure networks unless you are cleared to do so, and only 4 employees are. I've only seen a few things about them. One was a medical record, no vitals, unusual vocalizations that manifest hallucinations and psychosis in nearby employees, and skin that produces violent nausea when touched. The document was basically speculation that the skin functions much like the Australian stinging tree or a jellyfish. I read documents about people who worked with them as well. In 4, a woman was remanded to the psychological ward after being in the same room with them, and a soldier who stood outside of the laboratory where they are kept basically killed himself. Specifically, he peeked inside during a routine access, then began bashing his own brains out with the butt of a pistol while singing an Irish folk song. The woman who was remanded to psych was even weirder. During breakfast with her colleagues, she grabbed a fork, stood up, walked out of the mess hall, stripped all of her clothes off, blinded herself in both eyes, then somehow managed to make her way all the way up to floor 1, where the access corridor to Hive 3 is located. How she managed to operate the dozens of keycard readers, passcode boxes, and retinal scanners is still under review. Last email regarding her was sent in 2012, about how she sits in the dark of solitary on floor 11's psych ward with a permanent and blissful grin on her face. See, that was all really cool. If this were an SCP, it would take them 50 paragraphs of extraneous information that would bore me to tears. And it would all be referencing other SCPs you have to look into, and I know that that's what people like about it, but this is how you do weird government fiction for me. This is how I like it delivered. It's just little things. It's like, and then there was a woman who stabbed her eyes out, and she's locked up on the psych ward. No one knows what the hell happened to her. I prefer that so much more. Oh well. One of my colleagues whom I trust told me that he saw the twins once through hacked access to a video feed. He said they are woman-like, about twice as tall as a full-grown man. Aha! Aha! It is the four titties. I knew it! With unidentifiable black growths dangling from their heads, like hair but thicker, and they basically float a few inches off the ground and drag their toes lightly as they move. They're utterly pale. He never saw the faces, but he claims that they appear to distort reality, or at least the video feed, in such a way that space looks bent around them. Perhaps these are the IDAs that earlier dude was screaming about. This is all I have for now, but hopefully the world knows the truth someday about what goes on down here. We are all basically prisoners, and we have very limited and supervised access to the internet. So if you don't hear from me again, assume they figured me out. Wow. Wow. That was good. And it didn't go on too long, which is very nice. Like, you could just... and it's presented as just a jumble of thoughts that he kind of just gets out rapid fire, which works because that's how it's delivered, but it's delivered well, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. Damn, what happened, No Sleep? It used to be fun. Cool. It involves people who don't know what foreclosures are. Y'all like these ads for women's laser hipster? What the fuck? New Balance women's laser hipster pants? What? What? What is this? It's getting blocked. That's what it is. Ugh. Yeah, I don't have much to say because this is really well written as is. There are a couple nitpicks I had of stuff that maybe could be taken out or changed, but they were very minor points. This is like, this could even have been a early like paranormal board creepypasta from way long ago. It's just, you know, you kind of don't believe it when you're reading it, but it's just really well done. Raccoon says, I feel like the part about the twins was a bit too detailed for how little information the narrator seems to have about other things. Fair enough. And that could be very easily fixed with a line saying, I don't have a lot of information that I skimmed, but there was one brief afternoon where I kind of, I took advantage of maybe a minor leak, and this is as much as I could recall to memory. I didn't want to write it down because that leaves a paper trail. But that, like, again, that's kind of minor. And I'm okay with it being super detailed because it comes at the end. This is where it all leads to, and then it just drops off. But it doesn't drop off in a way of like, well, you didn't answer any questions, because this is all just like fucking hearsay anyway. And I don't know, dude, I like that. I don't get why we should care. You mean about what goes on at Area 51? Basically, why does anyone care about Area 51? Why, like, the reason why people care about Area 51 is why we should care about what happens on our McCarran International Airport. Same thing. So if you don't care, then you don't care. Oh, right. He could put a better hook. I'm going to disagree. I think that's definitely down to personal preference, but I'm going to disagree. I quite liked it. And as someone who reads a lot of this shit, this is this is definitely the gold standard for me. These are your tax dollars hard at work, Paprika. Right? Right? Okay. All right. If anybody has another recommendation, let me know. I'm gonna monitor the chat this time so I don't fucking miss it. I've got this one. Maybe. Gonna look through the thing, cause maybe. Dog eating cereal with a spoon. Whoops. Did I hit post? Shit. There we go. No, never mind. This is not a creepy. This is people making me do mod stuff. There we go. That is double posted. Moving for spam. All right, screw it. Master Dilgard, let's do this. Sing a song of yours, Abysme, while you look. I was totally about to do some Mongolian throat singing, but my throat still hurts from when I was practicing it in the car 2 days ago, because that is hard, and I'm getting better at it. I'm building up the stamina for it, but I'm definitely not going to do it right now because then I won't be able to read. Master Dilgard from the Creepypasta Wiki, posted by Cole Kenneth 56, 15 hours ago. 1 upvote. I don't recall ever seeing Mr. Dilgard outside of his house. I keep wanting to say Master Dilgard because that just sounds better. Not counting the day that the coroner took him away. As far as I knew, he was a pretty nice old guy. Well, nice in the way that a 10-year-old boy can view any elderly person as nice. They all seem sort of strange at that age, don't they? I kind of get what they're saying. Yeah, okay. No. That's a nice opening too. That is not overly detailed. It's not this thing happened and it scarred me for life. So this is showing some restraint so far, which is really which is a good sign. Doesn't guarantee anything, but already it's not pissing me off. Story starts with I. This seems to happen a lot. Yeah, I mean a lot of creepypasta is just this thing happened to me, which is not a bad thing, and it's dangerous to write second person because then it's just freaking ritual pastas. And third person kind of removes the personability and the intimacy that a lot of these stories should convey. And I think they are most powerful when it's, this happened to me. I guess that's just what I prefer for the most part. Not all the time. There are other stories that are third person and just this is an event that happened to other people. But I think first person is not a bad route to go. Not this thing happened to me. It's I never liked spiders or something first. Yeah. I was raised by my grandmother in a small neighborhood on the outskirts of Cleveland. Cleveland! We're so stupid we think this is art. Go watch the Cleveland tourism video. Not quite the city, but not quite the suburbs either. Right on the fringe. Its residents were mostly Slavic immigrants. It consisted of one long street with a butcher and baker shop at one end, an urban park at the other, and tightly packed row houses in between. The neighborhood had... God, sounds like fucking certain portions of the UK I've been to. The neighborhood had been built up around the 1950s, shortly after the Second World War. All the houses were pretty much the same, alternating ranch homes and duplexes, each one looking exactly like the others. Ticky-tacky housing. All except one house, Mr. Dilgard's house. Mr. Dilgard's house sat at the far end of the street, 2 houses down from my grandmother's. It was the only unique house in the neighborhood, perhaps because it was built early on before developers came in. I would wonder why the developers didn't buy up that one tract. That house was the envy of all the neighbors and the most intriguing to the kids. Good setup. I like it. Unlike the other homes, which were constructed of wood and at some point wrapped in aluminum siding, Mr. Dilgard's house was made of stacked stone. Oh, already I was imagining like kind of Victorian wood, so I'm wrong. It was a 2-story single-family home, huge in relation to the other houses. The stone had probably been light brown sandstone at one point, but eventually turned a greenish color because all the moss and lichen growing in its crevices. It also had thick ropes of dark green ivy growing up most sides, reaching all the way to the roof and back. Good imagery. The coolest part of it, at least to my friends and I, was a glassy conservatory affixed to the second story of the rear of the home. It was difficult to see in because of the ivy growing around it, but we imagined how it might look inside. I thought I was lucky because my grandmother paid daily visits to Mr. Dilgard. He was a widower and living alone. My grandmother had always been the maternal sort and would constantly take over casseroles and leftovers for him. She occasionally sent me over to deliver these, and each time I was hoping to get invited in and maybe, just maybe, get to see the inside of that room. Of course, as a young boy, I didn't think that it was proper for me to pry into an adult's life, and therefore never got up the courage to ask. Decades have passed since then, but what came to pass still makes the hairs on the back of my neck raise when I think about it. You don't need to do that. Just let it happen naturally. It started out being a curiosity, then became creepy, and then went all the way down the rabbit hole to insanity. This paragraph, excise it. Doesn't need to be there. I think a lot of authors put this stuff in because they are worried about readers getting this far and going, this isn't gonna be creepy, I'm skipping. Fuck those readers. Like, mature readers will be put off by this for the most part, and they will give a fair shake to your story, in my opinion, if you don't try to front load with this. Oh, man. David says, dude, this place sounds rad. It would be if it wasn't in Cleveland. Although, this train's taking jobs out of Cleveland. Yeah, it's on one of the Great Lakes. Erie? Yeah, Erie. I mean, it's a lot greener where than I live. So maybe. I don't know. All right. My friends and I would play in our postage stamp sized backyards just about all day, every day during the summer, drinking from the hose, digging in the dirt, playing cowboys and Indians, which wasn't considered politically incorrect back in those days. Yeah, I am old enough to remember where that was an okay phrase to say. Damn, I'm getting old. All the neighbors were friendly, and most could be found sitting on their front or back porches at some point during the day. They'd wave, smile, and occasionally suffer us a drink. Suffer. Wow, Abysme. And occasionally offer us a drink or snack. It was pretty much a given that no one minded if we ran from yard to yard during our adventures. I like that. It's a load-bearing paragraph. I may start saying that. Oh. It probably has to do with feeling a need to provide emotions to the reader. Yeah, no, but like, it's just so artificial and it's so put upon. Like when I always say with No Sleep has this rule regime built around this is how we make sure that everyone's going to get immersed and everyone is going to play along. And it's like, but it's all forced. And everyone knows it because you have a laundry list of rules that everyone has to, and like it's the rules basically are doing all the heavy lifting for the imagination. And that's the problem. Every time I go in to read a No Sleep story, at least recent ones, I'm like, I have all these rules in the back of my head, and none of it's because the writing speaks for itself, because the rules don't let that happen. And that's No Sleep's biggest problem. It is so obsessed with, like, I don't know, trying to capture this golden formula of how to make immersive fiction, and it doesn't work most of the time. Because it's basically just carte blanche to say, I can put as many vampires I want in this story, but people gotta treat it like it's real. Your writing should do that for the reader. I have many opinions on No Sleep, if you listeners have not gathered. It went unsaid, but we never played in Mr. Dilgard's yard. The grass had gone to seed. His driveway was just a cracked mess of old asphalt with weeds growing through it, and despite being at the end of an otherwise sunny street, due to the thick stand of trees bordering its side and back, it always seemed dark. Besides, as I mentioned earlier, Mr. Dilgard never left his house, so we weren't sure how he would feel about having us in his yard. For the most part, we were well-behaved boys and polite enough to avoid risking upsetting him. This is all good. This is actually very good. Relative to everything I usually read, especially on the No Sleep Creepypasta subreddit. Other than that one paragraph, I don't have anything to nitpick about this. The imagery is good. The little details are good. We are getting a sense for this neighborhood that the narrator grew up in. And it's not immediately creepy, but it doesn't need to be, because I still have that expectation in the back of my mind. But the setup is just very solid so far. And it doesn't feel like a lot is happening, but nothing really super important needs to happen yet. However, as we sat on my lawn digging worms out of the dirt for a planned expedition to the little fishing pond in our park, I happened to glance toward Mr. Dilgard's house, specifically that little conservatory at the back of the second floor. A brief glance indicated that someone was watching us from behind the clouded glass. I did a double take to be certain, and he must have noticed me staring and backed away. I know that I had no reason to think so, but I somehow got the impression that he didn't approve of our shenanigans. That's a very real thing. When you were kids in your neighborhood, at least this is my experience, there's that one house with the old people who just don't like them kids, and when you learn that that's what that type of like old person is, you always just have this impression of them that they're looking, they're watching you and disapproving of what you do because you're one of them kids. And yeah, man, that's a very real thing. Having noticed our spectator once, my eyes would wander over to the conservatory on a regular basis, and sure enough, every time I looked up, he was watching us. Every time. Eventually, he became so bold that he didn't back away when he caught me staring. I mentioned it to my friends, and soon we were all checking him out, silently daring him to make the next move. Perhaps open the window? I asked my grandmother why Mr. Dilgard was always watching us. Was he just bored? Did he have a sinister ulterior motive? She just dismissed me and said that I was being ridiculous, as he was too old to even climb the stairs anymore. Then how was he in the second story? If I thought I saw anyone up in the conservatory, it was just my imagination. Still, I knew that I wasn't just conjuring it up in my head. My friends had seen him too. I was so insistent and made such a pest of myself that my grandmother eventually relented and told me that she'd take me along on one of her afternoon visits. She would finally show me the inside of the house, and she was certain that would finally provide proof that it was impossible for Mr. Dilgard to have been spying on us from the conservatory. Sips coffee. Yeah, sorry, I need to drink coffee so my throat doesn't go. Gonna read a bit of the chat. The no sleep rule. Sorry, this is Raccoons talking. The no sleep rules can be beneficial to help beginning writers have a framework for building their story, but are a severe hindrance to the output of more experienced authors. Some of the rules. I would say the one about your narrator can't die at the end, which is something I'm guilty of, is typically a good idea, yes. You need to have very strong writing to be okay with that happening, or to pull that off well. And beginner writers probably shouldn't do that. So there's a handful, maybe, but a lot of them are just stupid and needless. Damn kids and their rock music and their skateboards. Sade says, I slept in. I am late. It's okay. Welcome to the stream. Dungeon Master Dilgard. Hey, coffee is not boomer juice. Coffee is eternal. Coffee has been around for a very long time and is beautiful. Making a burnt bagel. Who else is riding the carb train? Where's my bagel? I'm kidding. Don't bring me one. I already had yogurt. I'll have a bagel later. Okay. Caught up on the chat. Grandmother had filled a box with a half dozen of her homemade kuchens. Kuchen is the kuchen. Kuchen. I don't. This is German. Should there be an umlaut over you? I don't know. It's the German word for cake. Okay. But they were more like little loaves of bread with a crumbly topping and filled with jam. That sounds good. It's German tradition to invite friends to one's home for an afternoon snack with tea or coffee. Since Master Dilgard was homebound, we would take the gathering to him. I thought this was a Slavic neighborhood, which is not to say that Slavic and Germanic traditions wouldn't overlap, but I would have put a Slavic tradition in here, which is nice because I like the inclusion of this area's heritage. That's just always cool to read. Because I don't know, most of us aren't very familiar with something like that, and it's nice to see it in the stories. Anyway, I was nervous on the walk over, but my stomach was grumbling at the thought of those delicious kuchens. Kuchens? I don't know. I hoped that my grandmother was correct and I would leave Mr. Dilgard's home later that afternoon, convinced that our fanciful imaginations had gotten away from us. And us kids weren't seeing a person watching us, but perhaps an old blanket or sheet moving in the breeze. With each step, my paranoia melted away, and by the time we knocked on the door, I was under the impression that my grandmother had been right all along. But then we went inside. Take that out. Take that out. Let us be surprised when it happens. Master Dilgard was seated in an old leather armchair in his parlor. We weaved our way through boxes, piles of newspapers, and furniture. Too much furniture, and pieces too large for a house of this size. I didn't know the word as a kid, but I later came to find out that he was apparently what's called a hoarder. Grandmother said that he never threw anything away, except garbage, of course. And she joked that the only reason that got taken to the curb is because she cleaned his kitchen when he was napping or not paying attention. Ooh, yeah, hoarding. I took a seat perched on the edge of another armchair across from Mr. Dilgard, while my grandmother went to the kitchen to put the kettle on. I smiled and made some polite small talk, but it seemed as if grandmother was taking forever. When I had exhausted myself of all the generic remarks I could come up with, I sat in silence and took in the scene around me. That is Paprika's bagel, if you can hear that beeping. The hardwood floors were covered in places with threadbare throw rugs with Kashan designs. Not dirty or dusty. Is Kashan Slavic? Persian carpet. Which Slavic, that actually does kind of link in. Okay, cool. There we go. Thank you. I like that. Not dirty or dusty, though. My grandmother made sure of that. The plaster walls were covered in most places by peeling wallpaper. Floral and obviously Mrs. Dilgard's choice. Grandmother said that she had passed away long ago. Mr. Dilgard had already been a widower when she first moved into the neighborhood. The armchair that I occupied, as well as the oversized couch and love seat in the room, were similarly decorated in a flowery print. I distinctly remember the smell. There was the smell of grandmother's kuchen, which sat on the table in front of me, and the smell of strong coffee wafting in from the kitchen. But there was an underlying permanent smell, the house's smell. It smelled like dust, even though there was none visible, and mold, dank and wet, leathery. Basically, it smelled like an old person. That's good. But mixed in was a sickly sweet smell, something I had smelled once before, but still could not quite place it. It turned my stomach, though, and I had lost my appetite. I drank the small cup of coffee that my grandmother had given to me, but I declined the little cake she had plated for me. She looked concerned, but placed it back into the box. She'd leave them for Mr. Dilgard, of course. When we had finished up, she caught my eye and gave a barely discernible nod towards the kitchen. Why don't you get the cups and plates and help me clean up, honey? Oh, my throat's starting to go. Sorry. I did as she said and then followed her deeper into the house. When we got to the kitchen, she had me set the dishware in the sink and beckoned me to follow her. I did, and we reached what I imagined to be the rear of the home. It was disorienting because of our erratic path through what had to be decades of collected junk. We stepped onto a little landing. Grandmother arched her eyebrows and looked at me, a touch of humor twinkling in her eye. Still think that Mr. Dilgard has been going upstairs to watch you children? She didn't need to explain any further. There were steps leading up, both up and down from the landing, presumably to the second story and the basement, respectively. They were packed, top to bottom, with more of Mr. Dilgard's collection of odds and ends. I felt deflated. You see, sweetie, Mr. Dilgard is not watching you from his conservatory, Grandmother said patiently. Even I couldn't get up there, and my hips are in much better condition. She was right, of course. Grandmother had awesome hips. We finished cleaning up the dishes, made our farewells, and walked back home. I felt relieved and yet confused, as if there was a hollow place in my stomach, unfulfilled. I knew that Grandmother was right. There was no way that Mr. Dilgard was getting up those steps, not unless he had a secret he was keeping from my grandmother, though that still bugged me. But that thought still bugged me. That very evening, excited to tell my friends, I explained everything I had seen. I explained without much conviction that it was impossible for the old man to be spying on us. Just as the words crossed my lips, we collectively raised our heads to look at the second floor room, to reassure ourselves that we now knew the truth, that our eyes had not been playing tricks on us. And there he was. And if we hadn't had those two other paragraphs of, oh my god, the thing's going to happen, that would be even more effective. But I'm not saying that it was bad. We knew without a shadow of a doubt that it was not a blanket, not a rolled up rug, not even a dresser's mannequin. Because of the eyes, you could see the reflection of the setting sun glinting in his eyes as he scanned back and forth. I like it. It's eerie, but not overly so. It's not blowing its load. It continued for the next week or so, the watching. I don't know why it bothered us so much. It wasn't as if he was doing anything that could harm us. Still, we found ourselves trying to play in other people's yards more often, avoiding anywhere that his gaze could follow us. Finally, as young boys often do, we came up with a stupid plan. Yeah. Someone would sneak into his house and find the room, put an end to this once and for all. If there was something up there, something that we could be mistaken for a person, then that would put an end to it. We decided that it would be best for only one of us to go for the sake of being stealthy. It wasn't as if he would hurt us, right? He was just a frail old man. Unfortunately, I was the one picked to go, mostly because I had been in his house before. I like that this is a stupid plan. I like that they're only concerned about disproving it and not what would happen if they couldn't disprove it. I was patient and waited for one of the days that my grandmother had asked me to deliver a casserole. Generally, I would knock, and he would arrive at the door to accept it. This time, I decided that I would take it inside for him. I planned to go in quietly, and if he caught me, I could say that I did knock and he probably didn't hear, so I decided to just bring it in. This was back in the time when no one locked their doors. Neighborhoods were safe. Entering someone's house, as long as you were courteous, wasn't considered offensive. If someone did not want to be bothered, then they'd lock up, but most people never did. I could feel the sweat running down my back between my shoulder blades as I walked over, once on Mr. Dilgard's back porch. I knocked very lightly, just in case. Then it wouldn't be a lie if I had to say that the old man hadn't heard me. I balanced the Corningware dish, you know, the white ones with blue flowers, on my hip and pulled open the screen door. I entered and let the door close behind me, slowing its travel with my rear end so as not to allow it to bang shut. I stopped, waited, and listened very carefully. I did not hear anyone moving around, so I set the casserole dish on the kitchen table and planned out my next move. I calmed myself and decided to risk a peek around the corner and into the parlor. Maybe he had fallen asleep and was napping in his chair. I held on to that hope, as it would provide me with a little extra confidence. I had failed to come up with a strategy for making my way through all the junk blocking the stairs to the second floor. He was not in his parlor. I began surveilling the remainder of the first floor. Each empty room added to my surety that Mr. Dilgard was, indeed, up in the conservatory at that very moment. Perhaps it would not even be necessary for me to check it out, although, to be honest, I really did want to see the interior of that room. How much do we have left? Yeah, we're almost at the apex here. Or the conclusion. The only room left for me to check was Mr. Dilgard's first floor bedroom. It was late in the afternoon, and it was doubtful that he would still be in bed, but I needed to be sure. I don't know, man. Sometimes that's when I nap, and I'm not even old. I only made it halfway down the hall when the stench hit me. When the stench hit me, it was a mixture of rotting meat, shit, and cheese mixed with a few drops of cheap perfume. Yeah, that is gross. Are they going to throw up? I instinctively gagged but pressed on, already having a sense of what I was going to find. No unnecessary vomit. Thank you. Thank you. Even with my nose pinched shut and my lips pressed together. Fuck! God damn it! Come on, dude! I just gave you props, son of a bitch. Oh. God damn it. Even with my nose pinched shut and lips pressed together, I vomited when I entered the bedroom and saw him. Ugh. You've made a fool out of me. He was already gross. We didn't need that. It is pointless body horror that adds nothing. And I know I've said it 1,000 times, but for people that haven't heard me or others talk about it, you don't need to put in vomiting. It's just superfluous. I'm starting to think about what this could be. Maybe Mrs. Dilgard isn't dead. Maybe Mr. Dilgard's just a propped up body or something because he's not really doing anything. The vomit taketh away. I'm gonna listen back to this. I'm gonna clip that moment out where I thank the author for not doing it and then realizing that they did it. He lay in the bed, mouth open and dead eyes staring blankly at the ceiling. He had loosed his bowels when he died, but aside from that, there were no other signs of pain or struggling. I hoped that he had gone peacefully. The next few days passed quickly, a blur of emotions, feelings, sickness. I could barely sleep because of the nightmares. My grandmother Okay, so you just ducked the F out? Like, I know you just found a dead body, but you think that you would also just be like, and now's the time to check the conservatory. Which is not like, is that the wrong thing to do? Absolutely. But you're 10, maybe you would. I don't know. I might be talking on my ass on that one. There's reasons for and against it. My grandmother tried to console me. She said that I should not have had to be the one to find him like that. A boy's first experience with death shouldn't have been that devastating. Children need to learn about such things slowly. It wasn't proper for them to encounter an unpresentable corpse. No. The first time, every time, if one was lucky enough, should be looking at the person, loved one or not, made presentable by an undertaker. It was just easier that way. Easier to think that death was perhaps not something so revolting. It was as if when I removed my good suit that I had worn to the funeral, I also removed the feelings associated with Mr. Dilgard's passing. I somehow quickly assumed the normal routine of a kid my age. I went back to school, I went back to playing with my friends, yet there were the wide-eyed questions that everyone had. What did he look like? Did he stink? Was there blood all over? Do you think that he was murdered? I'll bet he was murdered. Yeah, that sounds like kid stuff. All the silly questions and theories of young boys that you could think of. It only took a few days to exhaust their interest, and then we went back to playing as normal. Only now we could play without our mysterious watcher. We were sad in a way, now wishing that he was still alive, watching or not. But he was. My friend Keith was the first one to see it. Maybe it's the ghost of Mr. Dilgard? I don't know. We were playing kickball when he just stopped. He stopped running and his jaw fell open. The rest of us followed his gaze upward toward Mr. Dilgard's conservatory. Unmistakably dead Mr. Dilgard's conservatory. Only there was someone there, someone still watching, and now they weren't even trying to be subtle about it. We could see them moving back and forth, going from window to window, tilting their head to get a better look. Once they had our undivided attention, they slammed their hands against the glass, and we saw a pale face approach the window. It was over in a split second, but it was real. No mistaking it, we heard it. That's a bit much. It's already spooky. You didn't need the slamming the glass thing. Feels kind of like a jump scare. We stopped playing in my backyard altogether. We just couldn't bring ourselves to do it. It was too uncomfortable, too scary, too spooky. Whenever I left the house to go to school, take a trip to the store, even to take out the trash, I kept my eyes fixed on the ground, not daring to look up for even 1 second. I tried distracting my grandmother too when we were outside. If she had looked up and seen something, well, her confirmation would probably drive me insane. Weeks passed before a disturbing revelation came to light, much to the ire of my grandmother. Mr. Dilgard's estranged daughter eventually showed up to clean out the house and prepare it for sale. Hasn't visited him in years, but now that there's an inheritance, she comes sniffing around, grandmother would say, sometimes several times a day to various friends and neighbors. That's a real thing. I like it. It turned out that Mr. Dilgard's daughter ended up with more troubles than a windfall. You see, when she and her husband cleared out the furniture, collected items and debris, they eventually made their way to the back staircase. Having moved aside enough refuse, they made a grisly discovery in the second-floor conservatory. They found the body of Mrs. Dilgard. Oh, shit. The person whom all the neighbors had assumed died long ago. While this was an unpleasant discovery, particularly repugnant to me since it brought up visions of the time I found Mr. Dilgard, it was a bit of a relief. After all, seeing evidence that our watcher was still up there even after Mr. Dilgard's death was disconcerting. This explained it. Somehow, someway, she had been living in that house, and it was likely that it was she who had been watching us all along. Wait, that doesn't make any sense. Then who's still watching you if both people are dead? Was she killed before then? Like, was she killed way before you ever actually saw Mr. Dilgard? That doesn't... My relief was short-lived, however, when word about her got around the neighborhood. According to the coroner, Mrs. Dilgard's corpse was desiccated, essentially mummified, evidence that she had passed quite a while back, probably even before my grandmother moved to the neighborhood. The house never did sell. Realtors are required to provide disclosures to potential buyers regarding things that may have happened in the home or neighborhood. This is true in most states, I believe. A death in the home was one of those things. Besides, even if the realtor had gotten around mentioning it somehow, you could never quite get the stink of death out of a place. You could take out the furniture, remove the carpets, even add fresh paint, but the spoiled meat smell seeps into the plaster and wood itself. No amount of candle or air fresheners would ever fix that. Years passed, and I eventually had the unfortunate task of selling off my own grandmother's estate after her passing. God rest her soul. On my final day there, after saying one last goodbye to the house that I had been raised in, I locked up the back door and walked down the driveway toward my car. As I did, I dared to take one last look up at old Mr. Dilgard's conservatory. She was still watching. And there is a link for the author's Amazon page, where I'm guessing that he is selling actual self-published books. I like it. Overall, it's quite strong. I have to wonder if our author got their start out writing creepypasta and then is publishing books, or publishes books and said, I can do a creepypasta, why not? You know, give it out for free and give people a taste of my writing. Very common thing to do. But focusing on just this story of Mr. Dilgard, I like it a lot. There's a couple points that just need to be removed. That are just like they're too much. They're exaggerated. They're superfluous. They don't need to be in here. But I just like the atmosphere that this story created. I like that it's just, this is my childhood neighborhood, and there was this weird specter, and there's tragedy surrounding the specter. It's very gothic, very kind of dark romantic. And that specter is just always going to be there. And it's the specter of, it could be the specter of a few things, of old people watching young people, of just childhood fears, of, you know, the things you can't explain as a kid. And when you do try to explain them, you may not like it. I like the part about how after they found out Mr. Dilgard was dead, that they kind of missed being watched. Because it's, you know, it's that weird thing of like, oh, you know, that creepy thing. Oh God, it's so scary. But at the same time, it's like, it's part of where we are. And, you know, it's like having an urban legend for where you live. You don't want it to really be explained away because you want it to remain there. and it's a weird kind of warm feeling I get from this story. I don't know, man. It's definitely a very good story about being a kid and, as a kid, investigating scary things. Very Goosebumps, but obviously a lot more mature than Goosebumps in the way it's written. Rose for Emily vibes. I have not read or seen or consumed whatever that is, but I kind of want to look into it now. Rabid Radioactive Raccoon says the story has a lot of ups and downs in terms of quality, more ups than downs, but it's still bumpy nonetheless. Yes, I would agree. But like, really, just take out some of those paragraphs that I highlighted earlier. Oopsie. Well, whatever. And you know, a lot of the bumpiness would go away because there's a lot of really good points in this. And everyone, if you like this story, consider giving it upvotes, because this is a lot better than most of the stuff I read and review on the subreddit. I bet you it's cross-posted other places. But yeah, if you see it and you liked it, or at least appreciate the amount of effort that went into it, consider upvoting it, because I try to support these things where I find it. There's an MM episode that's an adaptation of it. I will go listen to that then, David. We have been streaming for almost 2 hours. My throat's starting to go, but I think I have one left in me, and I don't want to stop right now. I'm going to go get a glass of water or something. Everyone let me know in the chat if you want me to continue or if we should just call it here. I'll be right back. Daddy riddles another story. Uno mas, please continue. All right. My feet are cold. I'm gonna put on my slippers again because I'm an old man. Okay. My grandpa angered the spirit of a dinosaur by seems normal to me on Stay Awake. Is that fucking real? It is real. 2 hours ago. Could be funny. And of appropriate length. All right. Sold. Stay Awake, by the way, is a subreddit for it's an alternative to No Sleep, where it doesn't have as many stringent restrictive rules. So if you find that you're posting to No Sleep but it's not allowed because of one odd rule here or there, feel free to post it here. Or if you also want to post your No Sleep stuff that is approved on No Sleep, you can also cross post it here. Yeah. It's got to be the difference between it and the creepypasta subreddit, for example. It's a creepypasta subreddit is about creepypasta. That can be artwork, that can be videos, narrations, all sorts of other stuff relevant to creepypasta. This is just your original stories. Logan says, I really like Stay Awake. I've posted to it a couple times. Awesome. I really should be looking at more of these stories. So if you do find ones that are posted here or your own and you'd like me to take a look at them, let me know. And since I'm going to be doing these weekly streams for a while, feel free to like save these up and bring them to the streams, or send them to me beforehand, and I can kind of save them up. All right. My Grandpa Angered the Spirit of a Dinosaur by Seems Normal to Me. Yes, you read it right. I did saw a spirit of a dinosaur. I did done seen a spirit of a dinosaur, or at least something looking like one, but I don't know the story. That's not a strong start, but that's okay. Couple of steps away from my home, there's a small swamp covering only around 1 hectare. I know that word. Why can I not say it? This need to be. It's like a different amount of an acre, hectare. Metric unit is greater equal to 100 areas. 100 areas. 10,000 meters. 2.471 acres. Mouse, why are you doing this? Why are you always opening my door? What do you want? I'm just gonna close the door now. She just wants food. She's already been fed though. Whatever. Oopsie. There we go. Ooh, land measurements. Hi, Sakura. I don't hate the metric system, Lone Wanderer. I just wish we could all use just one of them and not have to do so many freaking conversions. And I think the metric system does make more sense because it's base 10. Like, it may not be as aesthetically pleasing, but it just makes sense. Oh, now you want to go out? Okay. See, this is the problem. Yeah. Cats. All right. Everything else around is just a meadow. Terrain in total have 10 hectares. It's kind of weirdly written. In my childhood, I really loved to spend my time in there due to its unique atmosphere of peace that calmed your soul. Often you were able to see some wild animals, like deers, coming for a drink. In sunny days, it was a wonderful spot to relax. For some reason, it was always nicely cold, and the trees gave enough shadow to hide. Water never evaporated, though, no matter how many days temperature stayed high, and until adulthood, I didn't really, though that's normal. Thought that's normal. This has kind of feels like English is not the first language, and the typos are getting to the point where it's becoming distracting. First time I spotted it, it's almost conversational and like colloquially Southern or something, but meh, I don't know. I don't know. First time I spotted it was at August midnight in 2013 when I went outside to take our dog Sparky home. When I went outside to take our dog Sparky home? Where were you before then? Something then catched my eye, a bright white blue light coming from the swamp. At first I did thought it's just some will of the wisp, but when I turned my head to take a look, I saw this. How poetic. A ghostly figure of a dinosaur, to be specific, looking more like an ankylosaurus. I didn't really believe what I see. Ghost of a dinosaur in the swamp? That's irrational. My next thought was that it's just my mind playing tricks until it moved. All right, this is getting into a bit silliness, so I'm just going to kind of embrace it as our last story today. I saw it clearly wandering through the swamp, sometimes letting out a grunt with a slight growl, deep guttural vocal or groan. Here it gets even more bizarre. Oh boy. The plural for deer is deer, isn't it? Yes, it is. I wasn't feeling scared at all. I felt inner peace while staring at that creature walking truff the area. What? Walking rough through the area? Oh no. Only thing I feared was, though, of trying to come closer to it. If I felt like it doesn't want me, what is wrong with spelling out thought correctly? It doesn't want me to come any closer, so all I did was picking my dog and running back in my home. I would think it was one time weird hallucination, but from that time each day, if I went outside from around midnight to 2 a.m., I could always see it, but I never felt threatened by its presence. Not until my grandpa tried to cut down the swamp. How do you cut down a swamp? That'll deal with the trees, but not all the freaking water. Oh, God. It's 2020 now, but that started from March 2018, I guess. Even though winter's practically over. What shit? Even though winter's practically don't exist in Poland. Oh, okay. I think we have a Polish writer, and that explains the kind of broken English here. If I sound like I'm making fun of the story, it's just because I'm having fun. I applaud the effort to write in a language that is not your first language. English is especially difficult, so a lot of this is going to get a pass from me for that, so no worries, and I'm just having fun. From what he collected before December, not much was left, so his great idea was to cut down that swamp. I didn't really support his will just because of this entity. I never did tell my family about it because they would laugh it off and call me insane, but now I wish that I stopped him before it was too late, and now I wish I hadn't. 16th March, he decided to realize his plan, and I had to come for assistance in bringing the wood home. As 59-year-old man, he didn't had as much strength as me in age 20, but strong enough to cut down some alder, apparently. I thought to myself, why this damn swamp? That's too much effort. Just buy already cut tree and we'll all be fine. I feel like I'm reading like Jack does on Your Grammar Sucks. In few minutes, we have arrived there. This atmosphere of peace now made me only uneasy. From 2013, I never came back there, afraid that I might encounter this thing and God knows what would happen. Meanwhile, my grandpa grabbed his axe, picked which tree to cut down first, and went on with the work. First cut, and red flag already. Wait, what's that red thing? To quote John Wolfe, red means scary. I came closer to inspect dark red liquid leaking out from the cut. Its density, color, and that it didn't had any smell made it clear to me. That's blood. This tree is bleeding. What the hell? The tree is bleeding hyper-realistic blood. Yay. My grandpa, of course, shrugged it off. It's just a resin. Now step away or I might hit you with that axe. This is how Ferngully should have happened. My head quickly turned towards him. I'm not 2 years old. I'm 20. There's a 0. I know how resin and blood looks, and that's not resin at all. It's not sticky and doesn't have its specific smell, Grandpa. All he did was shaking his head and pulling me away so he can continue hitting the tree with his fists. Another cut caused only more of this blood-like substance to leak out, causing the water under us to turn red. Grandpa, for fuck's sake, stop. There's something weird going on. Then we heard it. A loud, deep growl came from behind us. Then the ground under us began trembling. I know he felt that too, because both of us turned towards the direction of the sound with visible grimace of fear and surprise on our faces. We definitely saw the same thing too. Ghostly ankylosaur charging at us. God damn it, run! I yelled. There's a lot of perspective and time shifts here. And
I don't know how I would rewrite it honestly to flow a bit better. And the English as a second language is hampering a lot of the story's delivery. So I don't know. I think I have to take an overview after we're done with the story as a whole before I can make a real recommendation. So I'll just keep reading. But it was too late. This entity got to us in no time. Then, like a mace, launched his tail at my grandpa, smashing him about the tree that fell due to the impact of the attack. Well, he's dead. There was nothing I could do for him anymore. His torso got turned into bloody pulp. Yeah, grandpa's dead. It then turned towards me, probably trying to do the same, but miraculously I managed to avoid its huge mace by pressing X and run back towards my home. That was all I could think of at this moment, just trying to not end up like him. I knew it. I knew it's going to end up terrible. While I was trying to escape, I saw our dog running towards me. I thought he heard that thing and wanted to check. Thought. Why that one word? And wanted to check what's going on, but instead he jumped straight at me. My own dog attacked me like I was a stranger, yet luckily I blocked his jaw with my arm by pressing Y. You don't even know how strong his bite was. In a minute, I managed to punch him off me so I could continue running towards my home, but he still chased me. Yet this entity disappeared. My grandma opened the doors. We have several, but I pushed her back inside as I jumped in, closing the doors behind me. Shocked and confused, she began asking me why Sparky attacked you. Did he make this weird groan? Where's Grandpa, though? But who was Grandpa? I needed a few minutes to take a breath before responding. I don't fucking know, but Grandpa is dead. I knew touching this swamp was a terrible idea. That entity. She interrupted me. What are you talking about? What entity? Where's your grandpa? I tried to explain. Well, apparently there's some creature in that swamp looking like dinosaur that was not happy about us trying to cut his home down. Seems like it also controls our dog. I then looked at my torn sleeve with bleeding bite wound. Still, she didn't believe. I guess you're too shocked to speak. Well, no, he did speak. At first, let's secure your wound, but then tell me where the grandpa is. Where the grandpa's going. Oh, grandpa, where art thou? Still, but I couldn't keep my nerves. I know it's hard to accept it, but he's fucking dead. That thing just turned him into bloody fucking pulp. She brought some hydrogen peroxide and bandage to help my wounds. In a few minutes, it was done. What was weird? All of a sudden, my dog went quiet, even though he was running after me. Was he, like, just running into the door? Then a sudden knock against the doors put us both on guard. Something rammed against the doors again and again after what let out a whine and fell down on the floor. I don't know what's happening. I had slowly opened the doors to look. What was that? Sparky rammed his head against the oak doors until he died. Holy shit. So the dog is beating itself against the door. All right, for fuck's sake, Sparky just killed himself. My grandma then. This is like a cheap indie horror game on Steam that's translated into a different language. My grandma then pushed me aside to fully open our doors. What the hell is going on here? I'm more worried about the grandpa now. Okay, let's go for him. I'm worried about the grandpa too. Oh boy, she grabbed my hand and began pulling me towards the swamp. I didn't want to risk encountering that thing again. Man, you're a fucking adult. Like, at some point, you just gotta, be an adult. You're 20. But she insisted that we need to help Grandpa, or she will go alone. Okay, I gave up and went with her. Soon it was only her scream and sobbing. I warned you. Grandpa, as I said, was laying dead in the swamp water, painting it red. This thing gave him no chance to survive. While she mourned him, I noticed an unsettling thing. All the trees suddenly began to rot. It looked no more like healthy trees as he tried to cut down, but some old tree on the verge of dying. Peaceful atmosphere was there no more, only hostility, and the elders bleed, all of them, like a living organism. Grandma, we need to leave. Now. This thing might be coming back very soon. She resisted to go for a moment, but I managed to pull her away and take back home. From now on, all the vegetation started to look like rotting. Animals passing by became hostile towards everyone.
Our neighbors told us about birds crashing into their windows to the point they broke it. This Ankylosaurus terrorized the entire village to the point everyone who could abandoned their homes or died in brutal attack. Now it's only me and my grandma trying to survive. I still have no clue what it is, what it wants, but I might be on the track. If I get to know something and won't get killed, I will make an update. Yeah, go for it. I mean, even the fact that it's English as a second language, this is just a bit silly. Just a lot of action, not a lot of atmosphere, nothing really to grasp onto. It feels like you're writing this out in the sticks or something. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know. And I don't know, like, why would you stay here? It's a good question, Rika. I don't know. Meh. Yeah, I derived enjoyment too, David. It was fun to read, but not for the reasons the author intended, I'm sure. Oh well. Oh well. I kind of want to read another one. I have the rest of my coffee. They stayed because Grandpa's ghost is still hanging out in the swamp. Repeat the entire story. I missed it. No. I'm not doing that. You know what? Let's just take another look through Stay Awake. Maybe there's something else. Suicide art. Head of Spectre. Head of Spectre. I've read things by them before. I don't remember if I liked them or not. I don't think I really disliked them. I can't remember. The name sounds really familiar. I think I read stuff by them a long time ago, so this probably isn't going to help. Okay. All right. As long as it's not too fucking long. Oh boy. No. Too long. Sorry. You know what? I'll read this next time. You know what? Okay, I saw this on Creepypasta subreddit too. Let's just do this. We'll do this, and I will be done. I like this story. Another smash. Remember when the Thor movies were good? And the violin played on. Short horror story by Channel X Horror. Oh, isn't this that dude who did the stream? During the blackout. Yep, that's that dude. Okay, I actually know who this guy is. Kind of. I don't know him personally. I don't think I've ever spoken with him. Okay. And the violin played on. Short horror story. I can't remember when it started. It seems like I've spent an eternity in this hell, but I'm sure it hasn't been more than a few days. Or is it a few weeks? Help me to recollect. It's always there, day or night, never stopping, never starting, always there. That sound, like the music of Eric Zan? Oh man, I'm gonna reread that story now. I've tried closing my bedroom door. I've tried wearing headphones. I've even tried turning up the volume of the music in my room, but nothing works. It's always there, piercing my eardrums like someone shooting an arrow through them over and over again. That infernal racket, all the noise, noise, noise. When my big sister first told my mother that she wanted a violin, I didn't care. Oh no. I thought it might be fun. I thought she'd learn to play it. I thought she might use it for a few minutes each day until she became bored of it. But that isn't what happened. Since she got it, she hasn't set it down. And I don't just mean that she plays it a lot. I mean, she literally does not stop. I mean, this is. This has to be very good to pull this off. Like, it could. I would say it should ramp up. It should be, at first she only played it a bit, but as she got, more into it, she started just playing it all the time. It's become a problem. She doesn't eat, she doesn't sleep. The fact that we're doing this right off the bat, it's like, okay, well, supernatural violin. Like this is the front loading that we don't need in stories. I thought she would eventually get tired and fall asleep. She hasn't. My mother acts like she doesn't notice. She just goes about her business as usual, as if nothing strange or out of the ordinary is happening, like she doesn't even hear it. I haven't slept in days. I can't. That sound just keeps drilling into my head like a corkscrew. It's gotten unbearable. I must bring a stop to this. I have to go kill my sister. Couldn't you just, smash the violin? Nope. My sister's gotta die. It was almost 3 a.m. when I rose from bed, having not slept a wink. I opened my bedroom door and walked out as quietly as possible, creeping down the hallway through the darkness. When I reached her bedroom door, I paused for a second and knocked. No response. Not even a break in the sound from her violin. I twisted the door handle slowly, pushing inward while I tried to get a glance inside. There were no lights on in her bedroom, but the moonlight shining through her window formed a perfect blacklit halo around her, standing in the middle of the room, playing that dreadful piece of wood. She was just a silhouette. I felt for the light switch on the wall and flipped it only to see nothing happen. Now, you may think that this was a problem, but it only made my job easier. Wait, okay. So there's only a silhouette, and it turns on the light switch, and the light switch doesn't turn on. Okay, so he just sees a silhouette, and it's going to be something spooky. I walked toward her, making no sound. I now stood next to her, looking directly at her silhouetted face, while she continued doing what she thinks is playing, paying no attention to me. Sarah? I said. No reply. She just kept playing without so much as a flinch. It was then that I decided the time was right. The time is now. There's no time to lose. I had one arm concealed behind my back, which I now pulled forward, revealing the machete that I had taken from the garage earlier. Bro, you don't need to do that to break a violin. They're kind of fragile. You just gotta bash it against the floor. I raised it above my head, looking at the glow around it from the moonlight, and then came down as hard as I could, right on top of my sister's head. So you're already crazy. Why? If this had been going on for a long time and that had been communicated to us, it'd be a bit more explainable. But this is just, I'm gonna kill my sister, which I said in the beginning as a joke. What the... Ugh. A dull, wet, chunky sound brought the atonal music to a halt. The blade rested in her head, blood flowing from the impact point. Complete silence. What relief came over me? I felt the tension drifting away. But I then heard a quiet whimpering sound. I knelt and put my ear close to my sister and heard her whispering. I couldn't make out the words, so I leaned even closer. She spoke, "Don't stop playing." Why? I asked, like you give a shit. She could not answer. I knelt there next to her, confused. Then a slight change in the reflection of the moonlight. From the darkness in the corner rose another silhouette. My eyes widened as I tried to remain still. The shape was not that of a person. It was probably 3 feet tall and almost as wide. Whatever it was moving in my direction. Not knowing what to do, I recalled what my sister said. I grabbed the violin and bow off the floor, started dragging the bow back and forth across the strings, making the horrid sound of dying cats that had only stopped a few moments prior. I'm going to finish and then ask questions. The cacophony of sounds filled the air once again, as they had for an eternity before I stopped my sister from playing them. The thing in the shadows stopped advancing and started moving back towards the corner from which it came. I've now been here for 3 days, making these horrible sounds come from the violin. I can't stop, or I know it will come out of the corner again. I can't stop. There is a way. You could do this. You could change it. And this is all about showing some restraint. Not that whoever plays it has to play forever, because then not only is there a supernatural creature that has to be driven off by the music, but you also have to explain how whoever's playing the violin doesn't have to eat, doesn't have to sleep, doesn't have to use the facilities. I would rewrite this to just be about, because the base premise isn't bad. My sister plays the violin. She's not good at it. She's not getting any better. And she plays at night, the same time, every day, or every night, and I can't sleep. It's driving me crazy. What the hell is going on? At first, my mom was like, leave her alone. She's trying to learn a difficult instrument, and I was okay with that. But, like, something has to change. This has been going on for weeks. And then he discovers what's going on and, like, goes up, smashes the violin because he just can't take it anymore, and then realizes, oh no, there was a reason that this had to happen. And maybe doesn't smash the violin, but, like, stops it. And then realizes, oh god, like that would have been enough. That wouldn't have been enough. My sister has to keep playing, but she's not actually learning anything because she's playing out of fear. So it's now just this horrible, grating sound that amateur violinists often, start out with. So there's something here, but oh my god, it's just so excessive. And it just the insane murder is not built up or earned at all. I would rewrite this. I would seriously rewrite this, unless it was done as a joke, which I don't think it was. No, not a fan. This to me is more Lovecraft, maybe a bad version, but still. Well, like I said in the beginning, Paprika, the music of Eric Zan, which is one of Lovecraft's best short stories. I'm not going to spoil anything because I encourage people to read it. It's not too long. But that one shows a lot more restraint and has a good atmosphere because that's all about what Lovecraft does. Rabid Radioactive Raccoon says, on the bright side, no vomit. True. And I would not say this is Lovecraft. This is just... It's not Lovecraft because there's not enough time spent on weird-ass words like Gibbous Moon and Tenebrous. It's not very cosmic horror. It's just spooky thing in house makes violin play bad go away. Yeah. I wonder what the comments say. Creepy, surprising. You should write another one. Stop writing. I'm not saying their opinions are wrong. Everyone's entitled to like what they like. I don't agree. Don't agree with it. It makes me angry. Not really. All right. My throat is very tired. Thank you everybody for joining. I think I'm getting able to read for longer. So I know people join at different times and they don't catch everything. So I will, I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep doing this until I say that I'm going to stop doing this. So tune in 10:30 Saturday mornings, Pacific Standard Time. And I'll be here. Feel free to bring suggestions, please. I'm not going to rely on it. I will look for stuff. But if you have one that you think would be good for me to read, one worthy of critique, or just being fun to read, please do. So I will talk to everybody later. Thank you for coming out. Bye-bye.